You here.
Sorry?
It was a joke.
Oh, you cut out in the first half, so I didn't get it.
Oh, I see. Don't worry. It was dumb. All right. Well, supposedly we'll have some more people coming this time.
Hopefully so. But I mean,
Yes.
even if not, I did want to experiment with more frequent but shorter streams.
Sure. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Canad gave a solid maybe, whatever that means, and typical name may or may not be coming.
Thursday asked for high council meetings and then nobody shows up.
Exactly.
I swear, people these days.
Well, I think they consider my streams to be kind of unofficial, I guess. Whereas if
Yeah, maybe so.
Damien does a stream, they're there. They will come.
That's what happens when you have a main character in your dev team.
I suppose so. So this time you want me to show the longer render distance. Is there anything in particular
Yeah,
you want me to show besides that though?
I want to rant a little about why it's increased and um, about demand being back for Sword.
Yeah, I know you wanted to talk about a few things, but what I mean is, what game features should I focus on besides that? Or do you intend this stream to just mostly be talking?
Mostly be talking, I think. I mean, we could go over the things from the previous build, like cities and such, if typical name joins, because I don't think he's seen those. But if he's not around, then I think it doesn't make sense to repeat that twice.
Right, right. Anyway, I'm posting a link to my stream
Right.
in the channel now.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm kind of doing this because typical name said he wanted to come and he wasn't around last time. So I thought we could make it up to him.
Yeah, he used to be at the high council meetings every once in a while. I remember.
He still is. He's just, he's just busy with fire, I presume.
Well, we don't really have high council meetings anymore, so there are none for him to attend.
I tried to make I tried to make this into high council meetings, but as you said, it doesn't have the same ring without him.
Right, right. It's only half the development team as opposed to the whole thing.
Right. It's only half official.
Yep. When do you plan to have the world generation from 0.2 re-implemented so I can generate new worlds as opposed to using the default one all the time?
Good question. I'm not sure. When Damon starts complaining about it, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just curious about whether the rivers will look strange in a newly generated world or if that's just specific to the default world. You know how the rivers are kind of broken.
I believe it's specific to the default world because there's some issues with it. Like it's exported at a very low resolution. I think it's like 1600 by 900 as an image, and it should be at least 8K by 4K. So it's like significantly smaller than it needs to be. And then there is also the fact that we need to apply one more operation after the loading process to break up the corners. Because like the new engine expects rivers to only flow through direct edges between tiles. But if you import a river map directly from a PNG, some of those rivers will try to flow through corners, and that needs a small fix.
I see. Okay. Well, I suppose the default world is fine enough for showing most things. I was just trying to find a river valley with the increased view
Oh, right,
distance.
right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't really get a good river valley because the rivers are a little odd at the moment in the default world.
Right. Yeah, I could see that being issue. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed.
But there's nobody here. It's been 5 minutes already.
I know. Well, I'm looking at the list of viewers and I see King Jerkara is in the chat and two other guys.
Hello,
So,
King Jerkara. Glad to have you around.
yes, yes, I like the frequent viewers. Well, I guess we'll just start. And if someone shows up, that's great. And if not,
Yeah.
oh well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll load the default world here. So the big change with this test build, oh yeah, these colors are, ugh, I don't like that. The big change with this test build is that the view distance was increased after much discussion. And that's pretty much the main topic of this. This stream is mostly just for talking about the development of Songs of the Eons, why things have been the way they are. And so I don't think I'll be saying very much. I guess you can start, Calandil, if you want to talk about this increased view distance.
Yeah, so over the last few days, we had discussions with Damian and in the testing channel about the render distance. If you recall, maybe 3 to 5 days ago, I said that I don't want to increase the render distance because I think it's not needed for hunter gatherers because there won't be farmers, there won't be large cities, and so on. Uh, but funnily enough, exactly a day after that discussion, Damon came back and said, "Hey Kara, what if we had farmers and societies in zero point 0.2 instead of starting in 0.3 instead of starting from hunter gatherers?" So so yeah, that happened. And now the render distance is larger because we actually will need it.
Okay, well, that makes sense, which means that the scope of zero point 0.2 or 3, excuse me, 3 has expanded a bit.
Um, I think Damien wants to change it, not expand it per se. I think his intention is to not have nomadic hunter gatherers, but instead have agriculture in place of that. I haven't. We're still talking about it because um, the old code I wrote for like economics and such. It doesn't really care if you're hunter gatherers or not, so that wouldn't be wasted. But the code for migrations was always kind of wonky, so I guess that sidestepped that issue. Because he told me that he'd like the game to be, quote unquote, more marketable sooner. And I think he believes that hunter gatherers are less marketable to a popular public. So I think that's the intention, and we'll see what comes out of it.
Well, so do you plan to have hunter gatherers at all, or are they just completely scrapped from the game concept?
I believe they'd have to be sedentary. I don't think there will be nomadic hunter gatherers in 0.3, and instead there will be some degree of farming because that's where the effort will be redirected.
Hmm.
If
But
that answers the question.
but I mean, ultimately, if many years in the future you reach 1.0,
Oh no, we need them definitely. Yeah, like or ideally all the history and stuff would come out of the simulation itself, starting from nomadic hunter gatherers. But I think Damon will want to jump into the middle of things sooner than I thought we would. So that's the big change, and the reason why I started working on increased render distance, which we now kind of have. It's kind of wonky still. I'm not happy with how slow it is in places. Like you can kind of outrun the terrain and so on. But I I think I mostly fixed that on the test branch today. It wasn't ready for the stream though.
okay. Well, I certainly think that the way the world looks now is so much better for marketability. Just exploring the world is so much more fun. I can look around, I can see things.
Yeah, I could see that. I think my difference in perception between what I have in mind and what you do in game, like right now, you being you, uh, is that in my head the player wouldn't be zapping around with this camera and exploring it like you actually do right now. But I imagine you're right in that it's kind of fun to do. So it would be a pity if it was limited to like 500 meters distance.
Yes, well, I understand. So during gameplay, I agree with you. Yeah, if I'm, if I have my city state and I'm just building buildings, I don't need to see a very
Yeah,
long distance away. However, if in observer mode I'm flying around watching stuff, I definitely want to see as much as I can because seeing is all I can do.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so my intention up until like 2 days ago was to focus on that quote unquote gameplay part primarily, for I think obvious reasons. But if we are to have farmlands and such, I think those really need longer render distances. Because like if you are hunter gatherers, if you're in a forest, you're not really gonna see much of a change in terrain that you wouldn't already see on the global map, the planet view, as far as availability of resources goes. But with farmers, we can't really display all the detail on the global view, so the city view would come in handy here. Hence the longer render distance. But yeah, I've been repeating myself for a while. Typical name seems to be online now. I wonder if he'll join us.
Oh, hopefully. I remember there was something I wanted to show everyone.
Oh
I think
my!
it's here. Oh, yes.
Speaking of the devil,
Say what now?
Speaking of the devil,
Ah, there he is. Typical name.
hello.
You should like ping the stream or something. Um, okay, I notice you're not like streaming in Discord or something. Are you like on Twitch or something?
Yes, I'm on Twitch.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I mean,
I
I
posted
can
a
look
link
it
in
up.
the Songs of the Eons channel.
Song of the Aeons channel. Yeah, here.
So yeah, I guess you could do the honors and show us around the state of the game in its current form for a typical name.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this island here is representative. I showed pictures of this on the test channel of basically everything that's happened. You can see the longer render distance. You can see now there are these terrain features. You can see also there are settlements, and this one it happens to be inside a volcano. Why not? What could go wrong?
Yeah, that's a problem.
And you can also see that the art style, I think, is closer to what you intend, although I don't want to speak definitely on that.
Huh,
Yeah,
cool. I didn't realize the game was gonna be that close to the surface. Thought it was gonna be more like a world map view.
there are both actually. So basically, I don't know if you remember the discussions we had like a year or so ago about battles when we were talking about dominions and how we wanted to have more in-depth battles simulated in the game than something in Paradox games. And so this 3D view sort of will serve that role to provide, terrain and features for those battles to take place in, but also for cities to be built in. So like if Solitarian could leave this view for a second, you would see that the whole planetary view is still there.
Although the
Okay, so it's
colors,
kind of like a Total War type thing where there's a map, and then when there's a battle, you like zoom into a given area or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, sort of like that. But it doesn't make a new random place whenever you have a battle. Like all of this exists at the same time in this planet. So like if you click on a tile and you show us the local view without entering it, you could see the local map of the terrain like close up. Could you show us tile?
I'm trying to find one, but it's weird. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Base column type. Yep.
That sounds like it would take up a lot of memory.
It doesn't really because it generates it on the fly, like on demand. There's some heuristics in place that stop it from being stored in RAM, and when we need to display it or use it, we can just generate it in like a couple of milliseconds. So it's always the same for every tile, and it forms a continuous surface for the battle to take place in.
And here we're
There's
in
rivers,
a.
there's mountains.
I just wanted to draw attention to this terrain feature here that we're in a grassland that is flat according to the world map, but if we zoom in, we can see there actually are still some features here.
Yeah, yeah. So you could build a settlement on this hill, for example, and it would be more defensible than if you were to build it on a flat plain.
Right.
So that's mostly what I wanted to show. I was expecting for Dayman to come too.
Oh,
I guess
really?
he was busy. Yeah, so I guess that's the big reveal of the last week. Dayman finally got his life in place, so he's back in more of a capacity. He's been working away on textures and on plants, which seems to be coming along quite nicely because there's more features for like developing the game. There is an ability to quickly reload all of the code from within the game without having to restart it. So he has much more power to develop new features than before. And King Jerkara is saying it's helpful not just for battle but actual city building. Well, yes, that's kind of the point.
Well, it's because
So,
the oh, yes.
no, please continue.
Okay. Well, it's because the so it's not like in Total War where there is a zoomed out view and a zoomed in view, and they're like two separate worlds, but rather you can imagine that it's all the zoomed in world. That's what's being simulated, and this zoomed out version is just kind of a representation of that. But really, everything's happening down at the 3D view, the local view.
Yes, that's kind of how it works. Yes, I mean there is some tricks for simulating it because you obviously can't pathfind 1 million characters or like 2 million characters in real time on a planet. So there is some heuristics for that. Like when you don't look at something, it uses approximate equations to simulate their movement and their actions. For example, my plan to handle battles, if you don't look at one, is to use something similar to Lanchester equations. And in that way, we can have all this detail without necessarily having to use up 20 terabytes of data to store this height map. Because the height map is generated down to 1 meter square, so this obviously wouldn't fit in RAM. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So, like, what's the advantage of doing it this way rather than like the usual way where there's like a world map layer and then like a more detailed layer? So, like, am I understanding correctly that this is like a continuous, like all a continuous thing? Like, I can zoom down to any level I want.
Yes, and you could just fly around the planet if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Not that there would be any. Yeah. So I guess there isn't really any obvious benefit of doing it this way as opposed to doing it the total war game, where you have a random area generated on the fly when you have a battle. But I think it makes more sense this way because you can prepare settlements around local terrain in advance of a battle, or you can plan your movements around the strategic map in this local view if you want to. It would be consistent with this representation whenever you have a new battle in the same region, which wouldn't really be the case in Total War, I don't think.
Oh yeah, like I haven't played the Total War games right. I just know them. So like, correct me if I'm wrong. I was under the impression that like there was like a cell of like this area, and then if the battle happened on this area, you'd have like whatever set like terrain was on that area. I didn't realize it was randomly generated. But what I was talking
I
about is
believe.
so like why like have the entire world like rendered at once like this, and when you like only need like the detailed thing for like a specific spot at once, because I feel like having the entire world loaded at once would take up like an enormous amount of RAM. Like, am I understanding computers correctly? I'm not a technician.
It didn't really take it that much RAM because it's a similar principle to how Minecraft works. Like it loads terrain when you look at it, and it unloads it when you don't look at it. So basically, there's only ever a small subsection of the world in this super detailed zoom level. You can see it loading right now. There's the terrain which isn't loaded right now doesn't really exist in RAM, and now it finished loading and it takes up memory. But if we fly away and if we look at the horizons, we'll see that the pieces of terrain disappear as we move away from them. And as we move away from it, they disappear from memory, so they stop being processed in the same level of detail, so that the game has more CPU power to process this whole planet at the same time.
How does it handle it if you're like zoom out and like trying to look at like that entire face of the world at once?
Uh, could you paraphrase that? I'm not sure I understand. Like if you leave this zoom level and look at the whole planet.
So like you said, like if you're like up close like this, it only loads the ones that are close to you. But like, what if you like put a pull all the way out and have you like this?
Or like this.
Yeah.
So when you zoom out like this, it only keeps settlements in this highest zoom level in memory. So it's very selective about what it does because like we don't need to know was the elevation 5,000 kilometers north of Norfolk or something. We only need to know the elevation where things happen at this instance. So if there's a battle, we generate terrain for the battle. If there's a settlement, we have terrain for the settlement. If you look at something, we generate terrain for the thing you look at. But we don't really keep the whole thing in memory all at once because we have those tiles to run coarse models of the simulation more quickly. Like when we render plants or something, when we simulate plants or something, we simulate them on the whole tiles instead of doing it tree by tree. And we have 8 people on the stream. That's more than before.
Yeah, I saw we have quite a few people in the chat room, and I was looking at Damien's stream of his development, and he apparently is working on these Crippen map mode.
Sorry, what?
Damien appears to be editing the Crippen map mode. This, the climate zones.
Oh yeah, he asked me to. Yeah, he found a bug with. He found an issue with it, which he asked me to fix. If you click on tiles, you may notice that after importing the world from 0.2, the height map's impact on climate kinda broke, and tiles have similar temperature when they are next to each other, even if they have wildly different elevation. So I had to fix that. I'm not sure if this is fixed in this test build, but it's already fixed on the repo.
I
And those
think
are
it.
some very. Mm-hmm.
I think it is broken in this test build. Yeah, it does look a bit odd.
Yeah, like if you look at the mountains, yeah. So I fixed it on the test on the release branch, but it's not in here apparently.
Well, that's fine.
So I guess that's what I wanted to show you guys. It's been 30 minutes now. Do you have any questions?
I don't quite know how much typical name has seen, so I don't know if he's familiar with everything
Very
that's
little.
happened.
This is the first time I've been here in a few months.
Ah, okay. Well, you've missed quite a bit then.
Starting when the game was dead because I hadn't really heard anything in the inner circle chat, and I don't really keep up to date with much else.
Yeah, so we're working on 0.3. We're trying to get settlements working. Maybe you could show us one of the settlements in the game.
Sure, yeah.
We have them spawning around the planet, and there is little AI written for managing cities and building them building by building. The graphics are placeholders right now, so they may look kind of wonky. But if you zoom in into city view
Oh, hey, this one's on
and
top
you
of the hill.
choose
That's
skin,
nice.
it doesn't look. It doesn't look. This is probably not the worst one I've seen. So yeah, it builds settlements. It tries to find sensible places for them, and it builds them building by building. So if we had the economic model fully functioning right now, and we unpause the game, this will eventually grow and hopefully grow in a sensible manner. But
Or
are the
shrink.
shadows broken?
Say what now?
Are the are the shadows broken?
I don't know. Are they?
I can't tell because the stream is very low quality for me because my internet is slow. Oh yeah, I think they're broken on your GPU. I have to look into that.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't notice.
But yeah, let's go back to the subject. We're at a stage where we need to write the AI for we need to write for we need to write the AI for settlements and creation of buildings. And besides that, there isn't really much more to say. We're moving away from the world generation, and now we're working pretty much primarily on AI and rendering.
Well, I suppose I'll ask the question that everyone always asks or thinks, I suppose. What do you think is the estimated time of arrival for zero point 0.3?
So I wanted to say 1 to 2 months, few days ago, but then Damon came back and he wanted to move away from hunter gatherers to farming societies first, which makes it difficult for me to say really how close we are because it's slightly bigger scope. It's also slightly different scope, and it's hard for me to tell how much Damon will be contributing because he's been here for 2 to 3 days as of now. And I think he almost finished the better plant model, and after that he wants to fix terrain textures and the real life map mode. But in the meantime, I'll be continuing the work on settlements so that in the next test build we hopefully can see them grow dynamically and organically as opposed to being spawned ahead of time. And I'd like to continue doing these streams weekly so we can judge progress more directly as opposed to, relying on my word.
Sure. But if you plan to have the next week, if you plan to have the settlements growing, then that means you plan to have the economic model, at least in some rudimentary way, implemented next week.
Well, as I mentioned, I already had a lot of the code written, so it's mostly an issue of having it displayed rather than having it written.
Okay. But will you have some simulation of the population of characters, of agents, or is it just buildings you want to have for now?
It will be population, yes. We have the same population spawner we used to have in the Unity build, so that shouldn't be an issue. I think you can see some of the names generated for characters and cultures in the console, which isn't displayed in the game because there is no UI for it. But I think if you remember from the previous build, where we were showing around the settlements, in the console you can see some of the data generated by the game, which there is no UI for yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just render time here. I'm trying to find something. I'm not seeing any names.
Oh because it's telling you if there are gems. I think you'd have to regenerate the planet
Oh,
because it will be displayed during generation. But after generation, it starts telling you how quickly frames are rendered. So it kind of flooded it,
okay.
under all the
Oh, yeah.
features.
And I wanted to mention to you as well these random or procedurally generated names for cultures and languages all kind of sound the same. That they all just seem like similar gibberish. I can't really tell them apart.
Do they?
Well, I
Like,
mean,
as I do, yeah,
just at a
I
glance.
can take that into. Yeah, I guess it's a perception. I guess it's a thing of perception because I try to make them quite varied based on generation. So the way it works is that it generates phonotactics for different languages, and then it uses them to make new words. And it works like that because it's very easy to do. But I guess it could result in samey sounding names. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because it only shows you 2 names per language.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also it just sort of all looks equally foreign to me, kind of.
Oh, yeah, I guess that would make sense too.
I don't know. Maybe it would make a lot more sense if I saw more names, if I saw it in use.
I can set up more names for the next test build.
But yeah, if I could just see the characters, a list of them and their names, then that
Yeah,
would
yeah.
help.
Okay, I'll do that for the next week.
Very good. Okay. And then do you also plan to have a UI or some version of it in place for the population? So I click on a settlement, and I can see how many people live there and what's happening.
I was thinking that for the first attempt for population, I will just have the UI in the settlement view. So if you enter it, you can see characters in there as opposed to a textual UI. Mostly because the latter is kind of more time consuming to make, and I don't want to get bogged down on UI that may not be used for gameplay directly. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, eventually it would have to be there for the observer
Yeah,
mode.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a plan for next week. And then who knows what Damien will accomplish in the meantime?
Yeah, when we see Damon's contributions and I can kind of estimate what he wants to do, we can return to the subject.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking at his development of
Stream.
the art for the tiles, the real life map mode. It looks pretty cool. He has some pretty neat ideas.
As he usually does.
Yes, yes. But we'll have to wait until he's finished with that to see the implementation of it.
Yeah, I'm sort of glad he's back in a way because it's been quite time consuming and difficult to do all of this alone.
Oh yeah, this project is just simply too large for one person, no matter who it is.
Well, it's also that Damon has much more knowledge for a lot of the things we're currently working in. So it's hard for me to make a plant simulation as good as he would just because I don't have 10 years of biological knowledge in my head.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Anyhow, any questions from the chat?
I didn't see
Doesn't
anything.
seem to be.
Yeah, it's just King Jerkera. We appear to have a lot of viewers though, but they're very
That's
quiet
because early.
viewers. All right. Well, I guess if there are no questions from the chat, if typical name doesn't have anything more to ask, I suppose we can end the stream.
Okay.
And hopefully have a next one next week.
Yeah. I think a weekly update would be
Oh,
pretty good.
Oh,
I,
am I correct in assuming that like this terrain we're looking at, this is just like a prototype, right? Like there's gonna be like more diverse terrain and shit, right? Rather than just
yeah, this is like the first version of it.
okay, yeah.
Oh,
Like the buildings will definitely not be rectangular boxes either.
have you seen this
What happened
Calandiel?
here?
Yeah, what's
I
this?
have not. Could you? Yeah, I don't know. Could you find out which tile it is so I can look at it later?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't want to exit the CU because I can't. I was flying for quite a while. Oh, interesting. It's a
Well,
square
okay.
around this crater.
Yeah, it's a tile. It's a tile boundary. For some reason, there is a seam around the tile. So, well, you can see how big a tile is in the first person view
Yeah.
because this is the tile, and yeah, I'm not sure whether it's a seam. That's certainly a bug.
Yeah, well, see, I entered the 3D view at this tile, and then I went south. So yeah, it would be around this settlement here. Let's see
Okay,
if I
that's probably good enough for me to find. Thank you. King Jerkira
then.
asks, are plans different, the models? I don't think they are, no. These are the same placeholder models I've been using for the past month.
Yeah. Do you plan 0.3 to have more models, or will the placeholder ones still be there?
I have models from my friend to replace this. I just need to edit them because he made me a bunch of general use models so that I can swap textures and reuse them in different contexts. But I need to make a leaf texture to use them as trees.
I see. Well, alrighty then. Anyway, I guess that's all for now.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to everybody for coming in the chat room. Thanks to Typical Name for coming. Thanks to Calandio, of course, for doing everything else. And I guess we'll see each other next week.
Yay.
Bye bye.
Bye.